Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. If you're new to my channel, I often make videos of my ATV trips that are between 1 day and 10 days in length. I also do some reviews, and in today's videos I'll be reviewing my 2015 Can-Am Commander XT. It has over 17,000 kilometers on it now, or over 10,500 miles. I'm going to cover the machine in depth, including what I believe to be its pros and cons. This 2015 Commander is my first side-by-side. I bought it new in April of 2016. I was a little apprehensive about buying a side-by-side because almost no one I knew at the time had one. All I knew was that at the time, I really enjoyed riding ATVs, and that I was worried that if I bought a side-by-side, I wasn't going to like it as much as an ATV. So, selling my ATV and buying a Commander seemed like a bit of a gamble for me. But it paid off. I've had a lot of fun with this machine. Regular viewers of my channel have seen me taking on a lot of adventures. And for what it's worth, I've had numerous people tell me they've bought a Commander like mine because of what they've seen me do with it. That doesn't mean I've been tough on it. I generally like trail riding, but I have had it in a few gnarly places a few times, but mostly out of necessity. I've planned on doing reviews on this machine before, but for one reason or another I never get around to it until now. When I was looking to buy my side-by-side, I wanted something sporty. But I also needed something that could carry a lot of gear, and I wanted something that could do at least 80 kilometers an hour. It turns out the Commander could do over 100 kilometers an hour. I've probably only had it going that speed a handful of times in all the miles that I've put on this machine anyways. Lots of people couldn't care less about that, and to each their own, and I totally respect that. In 2015, the Commander 1000 XT, which I ended up buying, came with an 85 horsepower V-twin Rotax motor. Like most of these machines, it has a CVT, and it does not have a transmission like a Yamaha or a Honda does. It also has a non-shift-on-the-fly, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive system with a high and low range. It also has Can-Am's Visco-Lock system, which means the front end is basically four-wheel drive with an open differential, but when one of the front wheels starts to spin faster than the other, after a few revolutions the other wheel also locks in and gives you full diff lock. I think for myself and for most riders, the Visco-Lock system works perfectly for about 99% of the situations you're going to find yourself in.
When one of the front wheels starts to spin, Visco-Lock progressively transfers power to the wheel with traction, with no wheel hop or driveline windup. It automatically disengages once it's no longer needed. Steering remains easy, even in challenging situations.
The XT model that I bought also comes with many other useful features like a 4,500-pound Warn winch, a tilt steering wheel, a front bumper, a very nice looking set of aluminum wheels, side rails on the dump box, tri-mode power steering, fenders, a sports steering wheel, and a very nice electronic instrument cluster with both analog and digital readouts. They're very easy to read day or night, bright sunlight or not, and you can just at a quick glance see everything you need to see. There's their fuel gauge, there's your speed, your RPM, there's your temperature gauge. I don't know why, but some machines have really hard, small gauges to read, and I don't understand why some manufacturers do that, but these ones on this particular machine are really easy to read. When I arrived at the dealer to pick it up, I was really impressed with the overall appearance, especially the fit and finish. The quality of the plastics on the exterior and interior, the quality of the materials used on the seats and the dashboard and the buttons was top notch. To me, the Commander looked and felt like a premium product. I felt I made a good choice, especially when I started the engine. That Rotax V-twin still sounds good to me to this day. And even with 17,000 kilometers on it, it still pulls as hard as it did when it was new. I'm going to cover the following topics in this video: ride and suspension, interior and body, engine, sport and eco modes, ground clearance, tires, storage, belt life, 4x4 system, reliability, and overall verdict. The first ride I took on this machine, I was really impressed with the comfort and the position of the seats. To me, they're pretty much perfect. You can sit in this machine for 12 hours and be comfortable. I know, I've done it. It has a really good seating position with good views out of the front. The driver's seat slides back and forth, and it has an adjustable steering wheel, so you can set yourself up pretty nice in this machine. One of the first things I noticed was how smooth the power delivery was, and the engine braking worked wonders on very steep hills and declines. I put a high lifter 2-inch lift kit on it because it only came with 11 inches of ground clearance from the factory, but I'll talk more about that later. Can-Am had these set up very nice, brand new right out of the box. The ride was really plush. I ended up cranking up the tension on my shocks all the way. It gave me a little bit more ground clearance, and it did stiffen the ride up a bit, but still I'm more than happy with it the way it is. Overall, it's a very nice setup for what this machine is, but keep in mind, even though it's a sporty looking machine, and it is quite fast for spirited trail riding, it has basic shocks. They're not Fox shocks or anything like that. One of my first trips out, I was driving the machine like I was used to driving my old ATV, and I found out the hard way you can't do that. I was driving a little too fast over some whoops and the rear shocks bottomed out and I blew them both. Luckily for me, they weren't that expensive to replace them. But after that incident, I also increased the stiffness of the shocks to their max setting, and I haven't had that issue happen again. But I also didn't drive it as aggressively over whoops either. The machine probably could have benefited from some stiffer springs in the rear from the factory, but you can buy those from Can-Am or the aftermarket. Those original Commanders were 58 inches wide at the wheels, but 62.5 if you had the fenders. Those fenders were out over the wheels, so you could go through some pretty big puddles and still stay dry inside the machine. They're very roomy. They have 2 large cup holders in the center console between the seats. There are also 2 nice grab handles on the interior of the machine for the passenger. One is above the glove box and one's mounted to the center console. The interior of the older machines is actually quite a bit wider than the newer style, but the new ones have more legroom for tall riders, so I guess you have a trade-off. The original XT like mine didn't come with doors, but you could buy them as accessories from Can-Am or in the aftermarket. But they're not nearly as nice as the sealed doors that come standard on the newer models. The new style Commander is based off the Maverick Sport, which is an excellent machine. Anyone that's driven either one of these machines knows how nice they are, but that's a review for another day. I was impressed with the power of this machine immediately. It's a nice sounding engine and it's very gutsy. I'm still impressed with it to this day. Just like other machines that have the engine located between the seats, the engine noise can be a little loud some days. I only use my machine for trail riding. I don't use it for work around my property. If you drive it slow around your property for work, the engine noise won't bother you at all. Keep in mind, you're not going to win a drag race against a sportier machine like a Maverick, a Razor, a Talon, or something like that, but it's still pretty impressive nonetheless. And you can have a lot of fun driving it fast now and then. Engine heat can be a bit of a problem sometimes. If you're driving on a hot day and you have a windshield with no air blowing through, you might really mind the heat. But if you drive in the wintertime too, or in cold weather like I do sometimes, that engine heat is actually a bonus. I found the difference between Sport and Eco mode was very noticeable. Eco mode is fine for most driving conditions. It reduces power output and throttle response and should give you a little better gas mileage on long trail rides. When you're in Eco mode, the drive-by-wire system will recognize if your foot is bouncing on the gas pedal a bit over rough terrain, so it won't cause the engine to rev higher. Low gear always uses Eco mode, even if the switch says it's in Sport mode. You can buy a Sport low override switch on Amazon or eBay or something like that that will give you full power in low gear. The ground clearance on these machines from the factory were okay, not great at about 11 inches. I put a high lifter 2-inch lift kit on it that made a big difference, and it didn't really affect the handling much either. If I were to change one thing from the beginning, I think I probably would have replaced my 27-inch stock tires with 29-inch tires. The Commander will easily clear 29-inch tires, and you don't need a clutch kit for that either. My friend Bruce has a 2015 1000 XTP, and he put 29-inch tires on his machine last year with no issues. He even told me that it rides better than it did with the original 27s. That brings me to my next topic, tires. My Commander came with Maxxis Bighorn 2.0s with 27x9x14 in the front and 27x11x14 in the rears. I found them to be very comfortable. They had excellent grip for general trail riding, and they're also a good multi-purpose tire. And the best part is I got 6,500 kilometers out of them before I had to replace them. That's over 4,000 miles. Overall, I'm very impressed with the storage capability of the machine. There's a large glove box on the passenger side. I keep an air compressor, extra gloves, zip ties, paper towel, and other items in there, so it's definitely useful. The center dash also has a spot where you can shove a set of gloves or cell phones or something like that while you're driving. The rear cargo box is a dump box, which is handy if you plan on using it for work around your property. I don't use it for that, but I also find it very helpful for the dump box when you're washing the mud off underneath. It's easy to get at the suspension area. And because the engine is between the seats, the rear dump box has 2 levels in it, an upper and a lower. There's a divider between the 2 sections which can be removed if you have large items you want to put in the back. The box is rated to hold 600 pounds. I see a lot of people complaining online about blowing their belts on their machines, and I can honestly say that's never happened to me. My first belt change on this machine was at 5,000 kilometers or 3,000 miles, basically as a precaution when it was in for service. I keep it as a spare. It's actually in really good shape and barely shows any wear on it. The second belt was changed 8,000 kilometers or 5,000 miles later. It was showing a bit of wear, but it probably would have lasted a few thousand more kilometers. The third belt currently has about 4,000 kilometers on it, and so far so good. 4x4 system. First of all, it's not shift on the fly. I know people that do activate it while they're driving and they haven't had any issues with it. I used to do that too until I had my front differential replaced. Now I always stop to put it in 4x4 or take it off, but I haven't had any issues at all with my differential since then. For most people, the Visco-Lock system will work flawlessly in almost all conditions. If you don't want to have to stop to shift in and out of four-wheel drive, just leave it in four-wheel drive all the time. It's not going to hurt the machine at all because it's an open differential system. I've had very good luck with it and it's worked very well for me. Can-Am now has a far superior 4x4 smart lock system available in some of the new Commanders and other machines that they sell.
This is why we are proud to announce a true on-the-fly lockable front differential that can be activated with the press of a button.
As far as reliability, I'll discuss the items that I had to have replaced. The front diff seal and gas tank were replaced under warranty at about 6 months and 1,500 kilometers on my machine. The gas tank had a bad weld where the filler tube was attached to the tank and it would leak when the tank was full. The dealer replaced it, basically no questions asked. The front diff seal ended up being replaced 2 more times under warranty before the dealer replaced the entire differential itself, also under warranty at about 7,000 kilometers or 4,500 miles. I've put on 10,000 kilometers since I've had that new differential put in and I haven't had any issues with it. The brake pads lasted me 10,000 kilometers or 6,000 miles before I had to replace them, and I'm on the original rotor still. The bearings were replaced at about 12,000 kilometers or 7,500 miles. The U-joints were replaced at about 14,000 kilometers or 8,700 miles, but they probably should have been replaced at around 10,000 kilometers or 6,000 miles. I've also had to replace some other things like bushings on the front end, and I can't remember what mileage that was at. The steering rack was replaced at about 5,000 kilometers or 3,000 miles under warranty. And again, last year, it had to be replaced at 15,000 kilometers or 9,300 miles, but I think that was my fault. I hit a large rock a few years back that severely damaged the tie rod on the passenger side on an off-road trip. I replaced the tie rod, but I think the impact also damaged the steering rack and it just progressively got worse over time. The rear sway bolts on some of these machines will work themselves loose over time, so keep an eye on that. Check them every ride just to make sure they're still tight. If they get loose, the sway bar will move a bit and actually snap those bolts off, then you have to drill them out, which can be a bit of a pain. Another issue with some of these Commanders and Mavericks is the gearbox grind. When you move the shifter from any gear to high, sometimes it won't fully engage, and if it doesn't engage properly, it'll grind when you step on the gas pedal to drive away from a dead stop. And that's pretty much how I feel every time that happens. Mine started doing that around 6,500 kilometers or 4,000 miles. Of course, it was just after my warranty was up. Apparently, it's a rather small fix, but you have to remove the gearbox, and that's 8 hours to take it out and 8 hours to put it back in. So if you're not handy and you need to have the dealer do that, that's 16 hours of labor right there before it's even fixed. I just learned to live with it. When I put it in high gear, I step on the gas gently until I can feel it lock in. And then once it's in, you can drive it that way all day in high gear. It doesn't come back out. It's engaged. Overall, I have to say I'm very impressed with how reliable these machines are, especially the engine. I have over 17,000 kilometers on mine and it still drives like new, I kid you not. Just make sure you change your oil at the recommended intervals and you can drive them for a long time. My friend Bruce has over 26,000 on his 2015, which is over 16,000 miles, and his machine still drives great as well. I recently saw a used Commander on Facebook Marketplace for sale with over 40,000 kilometers on it. That's 24,000 miles. So these machines are definitely capable of lasting a long time. My overall verdict is that I'd buy another one of these machines again. I would consider even selling mine and buying a new one with lower miles. But honestly, my machine is still running so good, I'm going to keep it for a while yet. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think of your older style Commander. I'd love to hear if you have a new machine and you had an old one, so you can tell me the differences between what you think is good and bad about the new and the old ones. Thanks for watching, everyone, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe.